That night was cold in a way that didn't play fair. Not the cute kind of cold where you throw on a jacket and call it a day nah. This was bone-deep, soul-freezing cold, the kind that sneaks under your skin and sets up camp. Snow was whipping sideways like it had beef with everybody, slamming into the old train station windows so hard they rattled like loose teeth. The place looked half dead, already flickering lights, empty benches, and that lonely echo you only hear when the world's moved on without you. The last train had been delayed again. No warning, no apology. Just one of those busted announcements crackling over the speaker like, due to unforeseen circumstances. Same old song. Most folks had already bailed, cussing under their breath, dragging suitcases into the storm. But one person was still there. She stood near the far wall, arms wrapped around herself like that might be enough. It wasn't. Her coat was thin, the kind you wear in fall when you're pretending winter won't hit hard. Scrubs peeked out from under it, faded blue, wrinkled, stained with a long day's worth of saving people who probably wouldn't even remember her name. She was a nurse, and it showed in the way she stayed standing even when her legs were shaking. Pride mixed with pure exhaustion. Eyes tired as hell but still sharp, like she refused to let the night break her. Her fingers were red, stiff, damn near numb. She kept blowing into her hands like she could breathe warmth back into herself. Truth was, she'd been running on empty for weeks. Double shifts. Short staff. Bad news after bad news. All she wanted was to get home, crash, and forget the world for a few hours. Instead, she was stuck in this nowhere station, freezing, broke, and trying not to lose her cool. That's when the door opened again. Not a regular entrance either, smooth, heavy, confident. Cold air rushed in, but so did presence. The kind that makes you look up without meaning to. In walked a man built like he belonged outdoors, tall, broad shoulders. Dark coat that probably cost more than most folks' rent. Cowboy boots, clean but worn enough to say he actually used them. Hat low over his eyes. He looked like money, but not loud money. Quiet, dangerous success. This was no average ranch hand. This was a millionaire cowboy, oil and land rich, the kind who owned miles of dirt and didn't have to say a word about it. He just stepped off a private rail car parked down the line, the kind only big dogs rode in. But standing there, you wouldn't know it unless you knew how to read people. He paused, scanning the station, probably expecting it to be empty. That's when he saw her. Something about the way she stood there alone, freezing, stubborn as hell, hit him right in the chest. Not pity, not curiosity. Something heavier. Something that made him stop dead in his tracks. He watched her for a second longer than necessary, noticing how she tried to act like the cold wasn't winning even though it clearly was. She noticed him too. Big guy, cowboy, definitely not from around here. Her guard went up fast. Life had taught her that strangers didn't show up unless they wanted something, especially men with money written all over them. She looked away, pretending he wasn't there, jaw tight. He didn't rush her. Didn't say a word at first. Just took in the scene, the empty station, the busted heater, the way she kept shifting her weight to stay warm. He'd seen bad weather before. Hell, he'd worked through worse. But this felt wrong. A woman like her shouldn't be stranded like this. The wind howled outside, rattling the doors again. Like the night itself was pushing its luck. He finally took a step forward, and in that moment, before a single word was spoken, before coffee or warmth or kindness ever showed up, fate cracked the door open. Just a little. Enough for everything that came after. Because history doesn't always start with fireworks or headlines. Sometimes it starts with a freezing night, a broken train station, and two people who had no idea their lives were about to collide. Asterisk. He didn't roll up on her like some loudmouth trying to show off. No chest puffed out, no fake smile. Just slow steps across the cracked station floor, boots hitting with a steady thud, thud, thud. The kind of walk that said he was comfortable anywhere he stood. When he stopped a few feet away, she felt it before she looked like the air shifted. "You look like you're freezing." "Ma'am." His voice was low and calm, wrapped in a southern drawl that sounded like warm wood and slow evenings. Not creepy. Not pushy. Just honest. Still, her shoulders stiffened. She'd heard that line before. Usually it came with strings attached. "I'm good," she said quick, chin lifting. "Train'll come eventually." That was a lie, and they both knew it. The busted speaker crackled again like it wanted to snitch. Further delays. No estimated arrival time. Same nonsense. Same disappointment. He glanced up at the board, then back at her. Didn't call her out. Didn't smirk. Just nodded like he understood. That right there threw her off a bit. Most folks either pressed too hard or walked away. He did neither. "Mind if I grab you a coffee?" he asked. Place still got a pot running somehow. She shook her head fast. "I'm fine, really." But her teeth betrayed her, clicking together like they had their own opinion. He caught that. Hell, anyone with eyes would. She was freezing her ass off, pride or not. "Look," he said gently, hands staying visible, voice easy. "I ain't trying to bother you. Just figured nobody should be stuck out here like this." She studied him then. Really looked. The boots. The coat. The way he carried himself like he'd handled storms worse than this and didn't feel the need to brag about it. Still, money screamed off him in quiet ways. That made her uneasy. "I don't need charity," she said, a little sharper than she meant to. He nodded again. "Didn't say you did." That landed different. No offense taken. No wounded ego. Just facts. He gestured toward the bench by the busted heater. Just company and something warm. World's cold enough already. Silence hung between them. Snow slammed into the windows like it was mad at life. Her stomach growled, traitor loud. She hadn't eaten since before her shift ended, another thing she didn't plan on admitting. She sighed, defeated but not broken. Fine, one coffee. The cafe was barely hanging on one flickering light, a tired clerk, and a coffee pot that looked like it had seen better decades. He paid before she could protest, and she let it go, telling herself she'd make it even later somehow. They sat across from each other, steam curling up between them like a peace offering. She wrapped both hands around the mug, sighing when the heat finally hit her fingers. Relief cracked through her tough shell before she could stop it. "Long shift?" he asked. "Long life," she shot back, then caught herself and half smiled. "Yeah, nurse. Short-staffed, always." He whistled low. "That's rough. You have no idea." She told him about the canceled train, the paycheck already spent, the rent due, and how she just needed one damn thing to go right. She didn't mean to unload, but the words spilled anyway. Maybe it was the warmth. Maybe it was the way he actually listened, eyes on her, no phone, no rush. When she finally stopped, embarrassed, she muttered, "Sorry, didn't mean to dump all that." He shrugged. Sometimes folks just need to say it out loud. She looked at him then, really looked. "So what about you, cowboy? You always rescue strangers at train stations?" That made him chuckle. First time. Guess tonight's special. She smirked despite herself. That's when he offered her a ride. Not flashy. Not dramatic. Just simple. Got a place nearby. Warm. Staff around. You'd be safe. Every alarm bell in her head went off at once. Stranger. Man. Money. But something in his eyes stayed steady, patient. He wasn't selling anything. The night howled louder outside, like it was daring her to say no, and standing there with frozen bones and a tired heart. She realized this wasn't about trust. It was about survival. So she took a breath and nodded. The coffee shop was the kind of place time forgot on purpose. One crooked table, mismatched chairs, and a counter that had seen more elbows than cleaning rags. Neon sign buzzed like it was tired of living. But to her, that booth felt like heaven. Heat seeped back into her bones slow and steady, like her body was remembering what normal felt like. She cradled the mug, letting the steam hit her face. "Damn," she muttered. "Didn't know I missed this much." He leaned back across from her, hat pushed up just enough to show his eyes. They were sharp but kind, the kind that had seen some mess and lived to tell about it. He didn't rush the moment. Let the warmth do its thing. So, he said easy, "A nurse, huh? That's hardcore." She snorted. "Hardcore my ass. It's chaos with a badge." She started talking, and once she got going, it all came out. The long nights where the clock laughed at her. The patients who came in broken and left worse. The ones who didn't leave at all. She talked about holding hands while machines screamed, about families falling apart in waiting rooms, about learning how to cry in stairwells where nobody could see. He didn't interrupt. Didn't try to fix it. Just nodded now and then, jaw tight like he felt every word. That mattered more than she expected. "People think nurses are angels," she said, staring into her coffee. "Truth is, we're just tired humans trying not to screw up." He smiled soft. "Sounds like you care too damn much." "Yeah," she said. "That's the problem." She looked up. "What about you? You look like you own half the county." He chuckled low. "Only on paper." Then he told his story. Not the highlight reel. The real one. Growing up dirt poor, fixing fences instead of dreaming big. Losing his old man early. Working sunup to sundown, betting everything on land folks said wasn't worth squat. One lucky break turned into another, and suddenly he had money, titles, power. But it didn't fill the quiet. "People think money fixes everything," he said. "Truth is, it just gives you nicer rooms to feel lonely in." That hit her square in the chest. She'd seen rich folks in the area, scared just like everyone else. Pain didn't check bank accounts. They laughed a little after that, trading small stories. His first busted truck. Her first day on the job when she passed out cold. The tension eased, like the universe loosened its grip just enough. She realized she felt safe, not guarded, not braced for the next hit. Just present. "You always this smooth?" She teased. He raised an eyebrow. "Only when I'm nervous." That surprised her. "You? Nervous?" "Hell yeah," he said. "You don't walk into a blizzard and meet someone like you every day." That honesty knocked her off balance. No games, no lines. Just truth, raw and unfiltered. The clock ticked louder. Outside, the snow didn't let up, like it was determined to lock the world down. The clerk flipped the sign to closed but shot them a look that said finish up. He stood first, sliding his chair back slow. "Station's shut. Roads are rough, but I got a lodge about 20 minutes out. Warm, fire, food. You're welcome to crash there till morning." She froze not from the cold this time. That offer carried weight. Trust. Risk. "You sure?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. "No pressure. If you say no, I'll make sure you get somewhere safe." She searched his face for cracks. Found none. Just a man standing exactly where he said he would. Her heart thumped harder than it should have. "All right," she said finally. "But if you turn out to be a serial killer, I'm haunting you." He laughed, full and real. "Fair deal." As they stepped back into the storm together, coffee heat fading but something else warming up instead. Neither of them said it out loud, but both of them felt it. This wasn't just killing time. This was the start of something neither one was ready for, but both of them needed. Asterisk the second they stepped outside. The cold slapped them like it had a personal grudge. Snow came down thick and mean, swirling under the busted streetlights like the night was throwing fists. The parking lot was damn near empty, just a few cars buried halfway like they gave up. Wind howled so loud it felt alive, screaming through coats and straight into bones. "Damn," she muttered, pulling her coat tighter. "This weather don't play." He held the truck door open for her big black pickup, lifted just enough to say it meant business. "Hop in, heat's already cranking." She climbed inside and the warmth hit her fast. The seat was heated too, and she let out a sound before she could stop herself. Embarrassed, she laughed. "Okay, this might be heaven." He smirked, shutting the door and walking around to the driver's side like this was just another night for him. Engine growled to life, steady and strong. Country radio hummed low, something slow and bluesy. He eased the truck out, tires crunching over snow like they knew exactly what to do. The road out of town was dark, just headlights carving a path through white chaos. Trees bent under the weight of snow, branches snapping now and then like gunshots in the distance. She watched him drive, one hand on the wheel, calm as hell, like the storm was just background noise. "You always this relaxed?" she asked. "Grew up driving through worse," he said. "Panicking don't help." She nodded, appreciating that more than she said. Silence settled in, not awkward, just heavy with thought. The kind where you feel everything but don't rush to name it. She glanced at him, catching the firelight reflection from the dash in his eyes. "You didn't have to do this, you know." He shrugged. Didn't feel right not to. That answer stuck with her. No hero act. No savior complex. Just decency. She wasn't used to that. The ranch lodge finally came into view, big timber building tucked into the hills, lights glowing warm like it was waiting for them. Smoke curled from the chimney, and just seeing it made her shoulders drop. Relief hit hard. Inside it smelled like pine, leather, and something cooking low and slow. Fire cracked in the stone hearth, throwing orange light across the room. She stepped in and just stood there, soaking it up like a cat in the sun. "Make yourself comfortable," he said. Kitchen stocked. Guest rooms down the hall. She kicked off her boots, toes tingling back to life. "This place is insane." "Home," he corrected. That word did something to her chest. He handed her a thick blanket, the good kind, heavy and warm. She wrapped it around herself, finally letting go of the last bit of tension she'd been carrying for weeks. He didn't hover, didn't crowd her. He poured soup into bowls, set one down in front of her, then stepped back. Respect, space, that mattered. They ate by the fire, quiet but comfortable. She felt human again, warm, fed, safe. "You always take care of folks like this?" she asked softly. He poked at the fire with a log. "Only the ones who need it." She studied him then, really seeing him. Not the money, not the power, just a man who knew what it meant to be left out in the cold. When she stood to head to the guest room, she hesitated. "Thank you," she said, voice thick. "For real." He met her eyes, steady as ever. "Get some rest. Storm'll pass." As she walked down the hall, blanket dragging behind her, heart warmer than it had any right to be, she realized something scary. This wasn't just shelter. This was kindness, the kind that sneaks up on you, sits down next to you, and changes things before you're ready. And outside, the storm kept raging. But inside that lodge, something steady and real was taking root. Days turned into nights like they were in some kind of slow-motion movie. Snow had finally eased up, roads were clearing, but the world outside the ranch still felt distant, like it didn't exist for them. Inside, the lodge was warm, smells of fresh-baked bread and strong coffee hanging in the air. She was finally feeling alive again, more than she had in months, maybe years. And somehow, It wasn't just the food or heat, it was him. At first, she thought staying a few days was just practical. Storm, shelter, no other options. But she kept showing up for breakfast, lunch. He'd offer help around the ranch, and she'd find herself rolling up sleeves without thinking. Feeding horses, mending fences, cleaning stalls. She was a city nurse, but out here, she learned hands-on work had its own rhythm. And he noticed. Always noticing, but never in a way that made her feel small. "You got a knack for this," he said one morning, tossing hay into a stall. "City folk usually break stuff." She laughed, shaking her head. "Guess I'm full of surprises." And it wasn't just chores. Nights were something else entirely. They'd sit by the fire after a long day, sharing stories, laughing at the dumbest jokes. He had this way of listening, not just hearing her words, but catching the pauses, the sighs, the things she didn't say out loud. And when he talked, he didn't brag about his money, his land, or his status. He talked about loss, regrets, triumphs. Real stuff. Soul stuff. It was addicting. Dangerous even. She felt herself letting walls slip. Letting herself care. Letting herself hope. And that scared her. City rules had taught her love came with conditions. But out here? Out here it was quiet, slow, and steady. Love didn't ask permission, it just showed up. And she couldn't stop herself from feeling it. The ranch hands started noticing too. They'd wink when he called her over to help with the cattle. One night, while she patched up a minor cut on one of the workers, she caught him watching from the doorway, eyes soft, a grin tugging at his lips. It made her heart do something stupid, something she hadn't felt in a long time, reckless joy. But even in joy, reality gnawed at her. City life wasn't waiting for her, it was demanding. Patience, bills, obligations. And she couldn't just vanish into cowboy land and hope for a fairy tale. Still, every time she thought of leaving, he didn't stop her. Never pressured, never pushed. Just gave her space. And damn it, that made her want him even more. One evening, snow falling gently outside, they sat on the porch, sipping hot cocoa. Silent, stretched, comfortable like an old pair of boots. She finally blurted out what she'd been thinking. "You don't make love easy," she said, half laughing, half serious. He shrugged, eyes on the horizon. "Never said it would be. But it's worth it if it's real." "Real?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. "Yeah," he said. "No games. No fake smiles, just real." Her chest tightened. Because deep down she already knew. Real meant risking heartbreak, letting someone in, trusting in a way she hadn't allowed herself in years. And damn, she wanted it. Wanted him. Then came the night she had to leave, or at least thought she had to. Train back to the city, life waiting, the world calling her name. He didn't beg, didn't whine, just walked her to the truck, handed her a blanket for the ride, and said, "Go. Do your thing. I'll be here when you get back." Her heart shattered a little. He didn't tie her down, didn't trap her. He let her go. And that was love. Real love. The kind that doesn't cage you. The kind that waits, patient and steady. As she drove off, snow melting under the headlights, she realized something big. This wasn't a fling. It wasn't a crush. It was deeper. It was soul level. And she knew if he could wait for her, if he could trust her, if he could care without chains, then she could come back. Because love this real? It didn't care about time, distance, or rules. By the time she returned to the city, she felt different. Lighter, braver, somehow brimming with hope she didn't think existed. And all that waiting, all that risk, all that quiet care he'd given her, it wasn't wasted. She was coming back. Not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but because she wanted to. Because love that didn't ask permission deserved a shot. And she wasn't about to let it slip away. This was no ordinary story. This was theirs, and damn, it was only getting started. Asterisk, when she rolled back into the ranch, it wasn't some dramatic scene with snow falling or a slow-motion hug. Nah, it was quieter than that, just her keys in hand, hard hammering like a drum solo, stepping out of the truck and seeing him standing there. Tall, steady, hat low, hands in pockets like nothing had changed. But everything had. She felt it in the air before she even opened her mouth. The kind of electricity that makes the hairs on your arms stand straight up. He smiled, that slow grin that didn't need words. And for a second, all the stress, the city chaos, the doubt she'd carried around like a backpack full of rocks. Poof, gone. I came back, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Not a question. A fact. He nodded, like he'd been expecting it, like he'd known all along. Yeah? "'Bout damn time," he said, low and teasing. But the smile in his eyes told her he meant every word with heart. From that day forward, things moved fast but slow in the best way. They didn't just dive into romance, they built something real. First, they started small. Walks across the ranch, sharing meals, talking late into the night by the fire. But soon, the idea of doing something bigger hit them. "Folks out there need help, not just a pretty view," she said one evening, staring at the horizon. "You got land, money, I got hands and heart. Why not do something?" He grinned. "You talking about building a hospital?" She nodded. "For rural towns. Folks who can't get care without driving hours. For people who need nurses like me. And maybe a little hope." He laughed, shook his head. "You're wild." "I love it." And just like that, they started planning. The project took months, sweat, and more arguments than they cared to admit. Blueprints and budgets. Volunteers and contractors. Fundraisers in tiny towns that barely had gas stations. But they did it together, him, the steady millionaire cowboy, and her, the tireless nurse who never backed down. And through it all, their love deepened. Not the fireworks kind, but the kind that sticks, that roots down in your chest and grows like a tree no storm can break. The community noticed. Soon, word spread. Newspapers caught wind. Social media blew up. "Millionaire cowboy builds hospital with mysterious nurse," they'd say. Folks called it destiny, luck, fate. But really, it was just two people showing up every day for each other and for the world around them. They weren't doing it for fame. Hell no. They were doing it because it mattered. Because the night she'd frozen at the station mattered. Because the fire in that lodge mattered. Because the little moments, the coffee, the long talks, the trust, they all mattered. When the hospital finally opened, the ribbon-cutting ceremony was packed. Local kids, townsfolk, press, and curious strangers who'd heard about the story filled every corner. And there they were, standing side by side, hands brushing, smiling like fools. Cameras clicked, flashes went off, but none of that mattered. Not really. What mattered was them. He squeezed her hand, whispered, "We did it." She leaned against him, head on his shoulder. "Yeah, we really did." And the world noticed, not because of money or power, but because of love. The kind that changes things. The kind that inspires stories, songs, even documentaries. People started talking about them everywhere. Folks called it the love story that made history. But neither of them cared about the title. They cared about each other and the lives they touched together. They didn't just make history, they made a difference. And every time she walked through those hospital halls, watching kids get care they wouldn't have had, seeing families breathe easier, she remembered that freezing night at the train station. Remembered the cowboy who didn't just see her, but actually showed up. He caught her staring once and said, "You see? You coming back." It wasn't just for me. It was for all of this. She smiled, knowing he was right. And for the first time in her life, she felt whole, warm, safe, loved not just by him, but by the world they were helping to change together. Some love stories are quick, flashy, and forgettable. This one wasn't. This one changed lives, wrote headlines, inspired hope, and proved that real love doesn't need permission. It waits, it grows, and when it's ready, it shows up just like a millionaire cowboy on a freezing night at a busted train station. And yeah, history remembered them, but so did everyone whose life they touched every single day after that.